Hello and welcome back to another episode of Rookie Season.
Welcome back. Appreciate you. Thank you for hanging on. It's been kind of a slow time of the year for us. It was supposed to be fast-paced and exciting. For myself, it was not. I haven't had much luck with the old ice fishing, that's for sure.
Me neither. I started out strong with that video that I made at the beginning of the season, catching that brookie, and I don't think I got anything else notable through the ice. I got those two perch in Fort Kent, and after that, just nothing.
That's more luck than I've had. I went out 6 times, and I have caught nothing. Yeah, I don't know. Ice fishing is not my favorite of the recreational sports. As we talked about at the beginning, you and I talked about the beginning of the season. It's not that I don't like ice fishing, I just love fishing in general. It's the process of getting out there, doing all the setup, and going through all the work.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I don't know, you have to have the full setup in a way. You don't have to have the whole kit and caboodle type of deal, but you have to have a decent enough setup to make it enjoyable to get out, to set up, to fully experience it.
Yeah, I mean, once you fish without a shack, or once you fish with a shack, it ruins fishing without one.
Right. And so it's like I have a decent setup to make things happen. And then the couple of times I've gone out, I've been absolutely skunked. And I don't have the highest drive for it.
Yeah.
Like open water, I think one of the reasons, maybe it's just because I'm lazy, but like open water, I love it. Because it's like right now, we're 5 minutes from the river, So it's like if we wanted to go fishing in the summertime, or nicer weather out than what it is right now.
Drive down to the boat ramp.
Yeah, and you can catch a couple fish, call it a day.
Yeah.
Ice fishing, you got to travel. You can't really ice fish the river. You shouldn't. I wouldn't recommend it. There's a pond that's about 25 minutes from here. That's the one I hit multiple times. Now, don't get me wrong. I hit it not necessarily at the beginning of the season. It is stocked, and it is a local area, so people do go there and beat the snot out of it, but I've always caught fish out of there. And it's stocked with brookies. I didn't have significant luck in that. I went out to push all one time. There was 6 of us on the ice, so there's 5 traps apiece. There's 30 traps in the water.
Yeah.
We were there for like 9 hours and didn't catch a single thing.
Oh,
So it's like, for me, it was just killing my drive for it.
Yeah.
Now I started doing some home projects and stuff like that, and I'm in class now, something for work, and I really put it on the back burner. It wasn't something that I was just burning to get after. Again, I think that's why maybe I'm lazy, but open water fishing, even like that pond that's 25 minutes from here, like in the summertime, I could still go out there with my canoe, throw it in the pond, and go fish for a minute.
Show up and it's game time. You don't have an hour of setup.
Exactly. That's just me personally. I know there's probably going to be some people who listen to this who are going to be like, man, this guy's just kind of a whine ass. No, it's not that. Yes, it's that, but no.
Well, I mean, at the beginning of the season, I was telling you, like, oh, this is my favorite way to fish, and I love it, especially being able to hop on the four-wheeler, because I don't have a boat, and get a couple miles out to places that I can't get to.
Right, without the boat. Yeah.
Right. And this year, that Fort Kent trip didn't do anything against my drive to fish, because even though we didn't have the best luck, it was just a cool experience. I had never fished up there before, so that's kind of what I chalked it up to.
Yeah.
But I made 2 videos probably 2 weeks ago now, and one of them was, I figured, it's rookie season, this is fishing related. I was going to make a video on my first attempt really at carpentry, trying to build a custom jet sled. And it turned out pretty good. I was happy with it. As long as you were looking at it from at least 15 feet away, it looked good.
Yep.
And I dumped probably $100 worth of wood into it and an entire day of building it. And I take it to a pond, my favorite pond to fish, and there's a derby going on that day. And I invited you out this day.
Was it the 22nd?
Yes.
Yeah, I had to bring my mom back to the airport at like 10:30 that morning.
But I had scheduled a good handful of people to come with me.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were going to be using my gear.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? My favorite place to fish, this is a great place to break in this brand new sled that I built 2 days ago and tested by just pulling around my driveway. And what I did was I had screwed the eye bolts into the skids, and I take it off the trailer, and one of the eye bolts pulls out. I'm like, well, I'll just screw it back in. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it doesn't pull out again. and there's a bunch of people at this boat ramp.
Just waiting as a derby.
Yeah, and so I'm like, all right, let's try for it. And I get across the parking lot, hit the boat ramp, boat pulls out. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. And I should have just put it into the side of the skid to make a new hole, but I just wasn't thinking very straight. It was 6 a.m, and so I just screwed it into
the pre-existing hole.
No, the plywood, because it was basically a plywood box with a lid on top of skids. So I screwed it into the plywood, and I looked at Bree and I said, "This will probably pull right out, or it'll pull this sheet of plywood off, but we'll burn that bridge when we get to it." And I make it 50 yards from the boat ramp. And it pulls the thing right off.
No shit.
And all my gear dumps out. And everybody on the boat ramp is just looking at me like, who is this asshole?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, Bree, stay with all the gear. I'm going to run back to the truck. I'm going to unhitch the trailer. I'm going to hook the trailer onto my four-wheeler because I've just got that little 5x8 flat trailer that Wheeler can pull, no problem. And we're just going to pull the sled up onto the trailer. And that's how we're going to get everything to the spot. And on the way back, I'm thinking to myself, man, this is such a great idea. Why do I even have a jet sled? Like, I should just throw all my gear in the truck bed. Yeah. And then every time I go ice fishing, just throw the trailer on the four-wheeler and drive it across the lake. Well, I found out why. It had snowed right before then. So there's like 10 inches of thick, heavy, wet snow. There's that nice layer of water underneath it all on top of the ice because we had to warm up right before. And so I've got this thing goosed, getting it to where the jet sled was. We're pulling the jet sled up onto the trailer, and I've just about got it. And for some reason, didn't learn my lesson from the front piece of plywood pulling off. So I grabbed onto the back. I had to get it like this last 6 inches. Pull, that piece flies off. The other two no longer have anything to hold it up, so those fold to the side. All my gear spills off the trailer, and I tumbleweed down the trailer. Yeah. And you know the A where it comes to the ball? Yeah. I landed inside that A, and I was stuck inside that A. And Bree, like, God bless her heart, jumps down, and she runs around. She's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? How do I help you? Let me, I'll help you get out." And I was just so mad. I was like, "Don't touch me. Yeah. I'll figure it out."
I just need a moment.
Basically.
Yeah. So really what you made was a video of how not to make a jet sled.
More or less.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, everything's on. Let's just try it.
Yeah.
And I make it another 150 yards. And after getting stuck for the third time, I was like, drop the gear. This is where we're fishing. This is fun. We're having fun.
Yeah. I'm going to make it fun.
And I drill some holes, and I start clearing off snow to put the shack down. And I jig inside my shack. And I forgot about the fact that all the snow was heavy, and it's pushing the ice down. So it takes me 20, 30 minutes just to shovel out this area for the shack, drill my hole, walk over to the trailer, grab the shack, turn around, and there's 3 inches of water. And I looked at Bree. I said, "I'm sorry. Today's not the day."
Yeah.
And we just dug the wheeler out, packed up, and went home. And I had to text everybody. I'm like, "Just don't get out of bed. I'm going home."
It sucked when you're battling it from all ends. You know, it to a certain extent. I've had some fishing trips where, like one time, it was summertime. I had a canoe, so it was sitting in the bed of my truck, and it went up over the top of the cab. And so I had a rope tied from the nose of it down to my bumper. Yep. And I had a rope on the back side, so it was tight down against the top of the cab. It was just a beater truck, so I didn't really care about the truck itself. Yeah. And I remember it was a 16-foot canoe, and it was a Toyota pickup, an 87 Toyota pickup. And so the canoe was the size of the truck type of deal. And I was battling from the start, getting it loaded on because the cab was little, and I was struggling to get it balanced up there, yada, yada, yada. And then I had a hard time, like, I can't remember. I had something else I was having a hard time with that morning, just getting gear together. I drove and got my friend. We drove to the spot, and I remember being like, all right, this is what we're going to do. Yeah, let's get set up. So I went to back up. I turned and went to go forward. The rope had, like, the tail of the rope on the front of the truck had, like, loosened up to enough that my tire grabbed it. And I remember as I was pulling forward, you could just see the line getting tighter. And I was like, what is happening? And all of a sudden, boom! It just ripped the nose of that canoe right off. Because what happened was that rope went under the tire, and as I pulled forward, it was just pulling it tighter and tighter, and it was tied off to the reach hitch in the back. So it just buckled that canoe, and we had just made it to the pond, and I was like, you know what? Maybe not. Maybe just not.
Yeah.
We fished from the shore, but it just wasn't the same. It was one of the ones where, like, the water instantly drops off.
Yeah.
And so you can't really wade out into it. And it's just all shrubbery around it. So you can't really cast besides like little pockets where you can flick it out. And just forcing it. Sometimes just, like you said, we're here to have fun. We're going to have fun.
Yep.
You're past that point.
Yeah. I mean, there's a quote. It was in a movie. I think I heard the quote. And it's one of my favorite ones. And I have a habit of overcomplicating things, so I have to remember this. But when it comes to the outdoors, the harder you try, the worse it goes.
It is. Yeah, that's very accurate.
I mean, especially when you overcomplicate things, it's the room for failure just gets so much bigger.
Can't control the elements,
Yeah. But yeah, that day really, I haven't gone ice fishing since. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten to like, well, maybe I'll go, but now we're getting 40, 50 degree days. And, well, I'm not really going to bring a four-wheeler out onto that. And
I know. I've seen some people who are still parking on the ice, which I think is kind of ballsy. Like, I know you get some spots that had like 18 inches of ice. I know that's not all gone.
Yeah.
But there's definitely like deficiencies throughout the ice now where it's like, I ain't driving across that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Now that the weather's a little bit nicer out, I've moved on. I'm past the ice fishing stage of my year.
Me too. I'm ready for open water.
Yeah.
You got any goals for open water this year?
Just to be able to simply fish. Because I'm having a kid.
Yeah.
My wife's having a kid. We're having a kid. How do you want to word that? So I want to be able to just simply get some wet lines.
Right.
I don't have a specific like fish that I'm targeting. I'm a trout sucker. I'm a sucker for trout, so I wouldn't mind trout. But if I could just at least still be able to fish a good handful of times, get some video of it, and bring my daughter's. We're having a daughter. Her name's going to be Lucy, and so I can still bring Lucy with me.
Yeah.
I'd love to justify saying I can go out in the canoe, but I feel like there's just a part of me that feels like that's probably irrational to bring an infant into a canoe. So I probably won't do that. But there's a bunch of places around here that I can fish from the shore, or even like there's a dirt road before your house on the left.
Yep.
Down there's a couple of bridges. When I was a kid, every now and then I used to catch trout out of those. And so I wouldn't mind just simply going back to those places to see if I could still catch trout.
Yeah, you know, I got a bone to pick with you about that.
Yeah.
Because you told me that.
Yeah.
And so on my way home from work, multiple times, I'm like, Brandon said he used to catch trout down here.
Yeah.
And I'd go out, and I caught bass, I caught pickerel, I caught chubs. I never saw a friggin' trout.
What time of the year were you fishing in curiosity?
Late spring.
Okay.
It was late spring, early summer.
I mean, we're talking probably close to 10 years since I fished these places.
Yeah.
So, like, realistically, things probably have changed since then. Because I usually do it shortly after spring when the water was still cooler, because they could be running. If you told me you were fishing it during July, I'd be like, well, that's to be expected. But
you know how people, like, if they're deer hunting and they see a coyote, they just pack up and leave because there's no deer here. After the second pickerel I pulled up, I was like, well, there's no trout here. And I left.
There's a spot over towards Nick Towers. What's the name of it? It's Middle something. Doesn't really matter.
Middle Oxhead.
Yeah. I had someone tell me one time, they're like, dude, they brute stock this thing. Like, I just always wanted to catch a big old slob of a trout. So I was like, all right, I'll go there. That sounds good. I fish other places around there. I was like, I'll go over there. First fish I caught out of that thing was like a 19-inch, like pickerel. Oh. And I was like, well, that's not a good sign, So I've canoed all over that place that day, and I caught more pickerel than what I would like to count. And I was like, there might be trout in here every now and then. Definitely ain't right now.
So it is stocked. I know that. I don't know. I have a hard time with Maine's brood stock because their brood stock is like 15 inches. Yeah. Which for a hatchery fish, I feel like is kind of on the small side.
I don't know. Like, I really couldn't answer that of, like, what my honest opinion would be. I would say 15 inches for a brookie could be considered almost a brookie. Like, because, like, when you're fishing streams or, like, lakes and ponds, a 15-inch brookie is a good-sized brookie.
Right.
So, to them, maybe they're considered over that 14-inch mark or something like that.
I think my interpretation is a little distorted because I came from Massachusetts, and trout there were stocked at like 17 or 18 inches.
Yeah.
And I've caught one truly native brook trout, like that pond's never been stocked.
Yeah.
And that was like a 4-pounder. That thing was massive.
No doubt.
And so I see a 15-inch stocked brookie. I'm like, what's so special about this? You know,
Right.
Like,
No, and I
not
get,
to be spoiled.
but no, I see what you're saying though. I mean, it's also just depends on where you're coming from. Like again, you're from Mass. You catch striped bass up here, and a good sized one is like up to 30 inches, and you guys go down your way, and it's like you're catching 4-foot striped bass. You know.
When I remember when I was younger, the minimum size, there was no slot.
Yeah.
The minimum size that you could keep was 28 inches, and we wouldn't keep anything less than 34 or 36 inches.
Yeah, I know. It was like the river, the Penobscot. You can catch stripers in there now.
Yeah.
Since they took out a couple of the dams. And a nice one, like I said, like a 30-inch one is like, dude, check this thing out. You know?
Putting that on the wall.
Right, you know, and you go down your way. So it is. It depends on what area you're in. The older I've gotten, the more I have been able to start appreciating just simply catching fish.
Yeah.
And not catching specific fish. If I catch the fish I'm going for, absolutely a bonus. But I have been getting better at like even pickerel.
Yep.
I don't go fishing for pickerel specifically, but if I catch a big old pickerel, I do appreciate the fight of it now. When I check out the size of this thing, there's a stream that I fish over near the house I used to live in. Remember last year when little Bailey burnt the snot out of himself?
Yep.
Like, I'd like to bring you out there one day. Like, if we could bring our cameras out there, like, that place is just nonstop action.
Right.
And you're catching, yellow perch to pickerel to large and smallmouth bass. Like, now to some people, they're like, you're going to go to Maine to catch bass or whatever. And I agree, because I'm a trout person through and through. But if you're looking for a place to just, like, if you're introducing someone to fishing, or if you're, I love that place.
It gets a rod bent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're catching fish, knock on wood, right? Because I know people don't come to Maine typically to catch bass or whatever, but appreciating just catching fish in general.
Yeah.
And that's what I like with this stream. Like, I can bring my wife out. Like, when Lucy's old enough and I just want to simply get her into fishing, this would be, like, one of the places I would bring her.
Right.
And something else I personally liked about this spot is I hunted around there a lot. Because I used to go out there early in the morning. Like, I'd get it, like, our work. You get out of work, I could go straight over there.
Right.
And it would be, like, still kind of foggy sometimes. And there'd be deer at the edge of the stream, like, while I was paddling up. It was just cool. But the stream's probably, like, the widest points are like 45 feet across, maybe.
Yeah.
And then the narrow points are probably 15 or so, 20 feet across. And it's just, you cast to the left, you slam a bass. You cast to the right, you slam a pickerel. And it was just, like I said, knock on wood, because if I tell you that, we go out there, we might not catch anything. But every time I've gone out there, I have yet to catch like less than 7 fish.
If you take me out there, with it being that narrow, I think I might bring my fly rod.
Yeah, no, you absolutely could.
Put a popper on the fly rod.
No, you absolutely could. My buddy, I used to have a buddy that I would, so like buying a fishing boat, I would love to have what he has. I think it was, I'm not a boat guy.
Okay.
I know you're a boat guy. I want to spitball this.
Yep.
You might tell me that this is not anything to brag about, but I thought this thing was cool. I'm pretty sure it was just called a Starcraft. It was like a John boat. Essentially, it was more of a flat-bottom boat, but it was wide.
Yep.
And then in the front of it, it was plywood over, and it had the spinning chair. You could put in there and spin around in it. And off the back, he had 2 more of those spinning chairs, which was right before the engine. It was an outboard, but he put another thing of plywood right there. And so you could put 2 chairs there, and then there was a console on it'd be like the passenger side of the boat.
Yeah.
So you could sit down and drive that way. But you could fit like 4 or 5 people in it comfortably.
Right.
I think it was like a 17-foot. But in this stream, because it was a flat bottom, like he used to be able to, we'd rip all the way up there. And then the current would bring you back. And so we would just, and it was just so much fun because, I don't know. That's what I would like to get for a fishing boat. I don't need a large boat. I want something where I can get it into spots like that, but it also won't capsize if I go across like Cold Stream or Moosehead, let's say. I know Moosehead's cutting it because Moosehead can get 4-foot swales, and I'm sure that wouldn't love it, but you get my point.
Yeah, no, I mean that's, in my opinion, that's not to call it a starter boat, but that's a great way to start out with boats because it's I've heard it just referred to as a bass boat conversion, or like Mikey always says, I want to bass boat it. And that literally, if you want to say you have a bass boated John boat, you just cut out a piece of plywood to fit the front seats, so that way you have a flat casting deck.
Yeah.
But something like that, like, there's a million tutorials on YouTube, and you know what you're doing. You can figure it out pretty easily and get wicked fancy with it. People do carpets. My favorite one is people do AstroTurf, so it's like grass on the inside.
Yeah, that's
kind of awesome to me.
Yeah, because like if I could do a deck like that, two things. One, I want to be able to bring the dog.
Yep.
And I don't know what age it is, and now that like I know I'm not like a parent yet because Lucy's not technically here, so I'm not like parenting her. But my parenting mind is already going where it's like, when can I justify putting this kid on a boat? Right. Because I will like. This is gonna be a really weird comparison, but this is the only famous like chick that I know when it comes to outdoor stuff. But like that what's her name? Hannah Barron.
Barstool Outdoors.
I think so. She does like all like the cat fishing, but she also does a lot of like bass fishing and stuff.
I'm thinking of Tim Wells' daughter. The Slockmaster's daughter is the girl who runs the Barstool Outdoors.
Not sure. Let's put it this way: my daughter can be a princess that chases things around and wants to stay clean all the time if she wants to.
Yeah.
I am going to introduce her to the redneck side of the world where I'm going to be like, grab your pole, honey, we're going fishing, Right. And so that Hannah chick, she, like, I see her on Facebook or Instagram every now and then, and she's, like, slaying these monster fish, you know? And she does go with her dad. I have no idea who her dad is, though. Like, I don't focus that much, I guess. But they're just having a good time. Like, their videos are, like, usually it's, like, her boyfriend, and her dad. They'll go out on the river, and they'll go, like, catfishing or whatever else, and this chick's hot. I do like that. But the other thing...
Christmas.
But, she just had a good time with her old man type of deal.
Yeah.
And, like, I told my wife, like, I don't care if I have a son or a daughter. Like, I'm going to yell at them the same when they're holding the flashlight wrong. But, so... Going back to your question a minute ago was like, do I have any fishing goals this year? And it's just simply to be able to get out, wet some lines, and still catch a fish while being a brandy new father. Like, she's due in May, which is like when fishing kind of starts kicking off. And she's due May 29th. So let's say if she lives up to the actual date, fishing's kind of kicked off then.
I know. Let me preface this. I'm so excited for you and everything. And I don't actually put this over you having a daughter.
I know what you mean.
I'm bummed at the timing.
Yeah.
Because I know you and I talked about going down to the Cape to do striper and sea bass.
And it's right in that time period.
And I was like, oh, well, May 29th. Well, okay, so we'll be a little early, but we still got a pretty good chance. I'm like, well, the week or two leading up to it, you probably want to be around just in case.
I'm probably not going to leave state at that point. No. My wife would kill me. My wife doesn't care about much. She's really easygoing. She always wants me to go fishing and do whatnot. But if I did that a week and a half before she was due,
or run to the other side of New England so I can catch a 6-pound sea bass.
Yeah. She's, what about your 6-pound child? Big we'll have another one. I can't catch this bass again.
She'll be there when I get back.
Yeah. Now, do you have any goals? Do you have any goals on this coming year?
I do. Kind of lofty ones, admittedly so, but I've got medic school starting this fall, so I know next summer I probably won't be able to fish much. I'm still going to force myself, not that you have to force yourself, but on days I'm like, oh, I'm tired, I'm going to stay home. I'm still going to go out because I want to keep pumping content out for this.
Yeah.
Because this is fun, but I really want to hit it hard this year, and I've realized I really miss saltwater fishing. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to try to get back into, and learning how to saltwater fish Maine, because that's been one of my things. Like, I always had somebody to take me back home. My dad taught me everything, and to the point of I was 16, and he said, if you can find your way to the marina, you know what you're doing, take the boat out, take your friends out, go fish, go do whatever you want. And I could go be successful on my own, and I don't quite feel that way up here. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about it, I was like, well...
What do you mean by... What don't you feel? Maybe I misunderstood.
I don't feel like I could go out on my own up here and be successful with saltwater, because I don't really know what I'm doing up here, where to go, and how to fish these
When you said
spots.
up here, I thought you meant our location, because we're not on the coast.
Right. I know it's like an hour to get to the coast.
Yeah.
But and I was like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
I didn't know how to freshwater fish. I'm no expert, but I can hold my own on a pond. And so I just had to go and figure it out, and I'm just gonna have to do it again.
Yeah.
So I bought a new rod. That's when I told you that.
I just saw you texting that. Yeah.
So it's.
I'm an ugly stick believer through and through.
Hey, I had one for the longest time. I broke it somehow, but
no doubt. Yeah, that takes talent.
Being 7 years old, seeing if I could touch the tip to the butt.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I bought a rod that I'm like, this would be perfect for fishing for stripers in the Penobscot. I'm thinking about. I'm like, this would be ultra light back home.
Yeah.
And I got like a saltwater whopper plopper. I've just never seen one before, so I was like, oh yeah, let's try a 1 ounce whopper plopper. Right. I've got striper lures from back home. I've got a spot that I plan on. There's a beach there. Bree loves the beach, so she can park on the beach, and I'm going to launch the kayak and paddle out to this rock pile and try to catch a sea bass up here, because they are making their way up here now with the warmer water, and really just try to get some striped bass, some sea bass, and I bought my halibut license.
Oh, nice. There you go. Yep.
I remember last year I went saltwater fishing one day, and when I bought the license, it popped up, would you like to buy 5 halibut tags for $5? And I said, what? That's a thing? I did research, and that lobsterman, Jacob Knowles, on YouTube, he's big on TikTok, because he does like, oh, this is what we look for in a lobster here in Maine.
Yeah.
And he has some halibut fishing videos. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized if I could get a boat that could go a mile or two offshore, I'm kind of in the running for halibut. It's not like the best chance in the world, because they're already considered overfished, but you're not like so little of a chance that you're stupid for trying.
Yeah.
And Jeff offered his boat to the crew at work. So we've got, I bought all the tags. I'm bringing up all of the tuna gear from the Cape, and we're going to try to catch a halibut.
That'd be cool.
So at the very least, I'd be surprised if we couldn't catch like some haddock or
just something
pollock.
Yeah.
I think we'll definitely be able to get some sort of fish over the side.
Yep.
But I'm definitely bringing the camera gear for that.
Yeah.
And man, if we could, the legal limit is 43 inches. That's the smallest one that you can keep. 43 or 41.
For a halibut?
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought those were small fish. I don't know anything about saltwater fish, so.
Little Bailey has a picture. I guess he used to catch them, because it's a common thing. Lobstermen, that time of year, the season's only 2 or 3 weeks. They run long lines for them, which if anybody's ever seen how commercial sword fishing works, same idea. Buoy, fishing line with 20 hooks, another buoy. Lobstermen do the same thing for halibut, except those lines are on the bottom. So Bailey's got a picture of him holding a 150-pound halibut.
No doubt.
So
he can hold that? I think Bailey's 120 pounds.
Well, half of it was on the deck of the boat.
Yeah.
But, he's holding the head up.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
So that's my biggest goal, is to catch something from the ocean sizable enough I can take it home and eat it. And if I could get a halibut, that's going to be awesome. And that's going to seal the deal of I'm buying my own boat.
Yeah.
And I'm in a tough spot with the boat too, because I had the same idea as you. I just want some sort of metal boat that if I take it into like the river and it bounces off of a rock, I won't care.
Right.
But those are lightweight, and those get tossed to hell in the ocean.
See, for me, like, I don't really have any interest in fishing the ocean.
Yeah.
So, like, I do have interest in trying to make it so I can fish the river. Because I think I could just really sell... Like, my wife likes doing stuff like that, so it's not like I'm truly trying to sell my wife on it. But the concept of being like, hey, honey, like, do you want to go into the river for, like, 5 or 6 hours a day, go fishing for a little while?
Family day.
Yeah, it's right there. You know,
right.
It'd be so easy to go put in. And you go up around the island right there.
Yeah.
You know, slay bass all day, then come back. I don't know. I don't have any... It's not that I'm against fishing the ocean. I think it's just more or less, again, I'm lazy. The progress of going out there and getting...
hour drive, and then it's going to be another, like for the halibut, a mile to, depending on where you want to go, because 100 feet is kind of shallow for them, to 10, 15 miles
Right.
of driving
Yeah.
on the boat.
And then it's for me, it'd be like learning learning the waters, learning the rules, learning all that. Like that doesn't get my goat.
There's a lot of laws in Maine, and it's already tough to keep the couple that I have to straight.
Yeah, no.
But
that's why I perfected just jacking all my deer. Yeah. But no, exactly, just because of all the rules and stuff like that.
remind me to circle back to the river.
Okay.
But the last goal that I have, and sorry, Dad, I know you listen. I promise I'm not coming home just for the boat. But my dad got a boat.
Ooh, he's coming for just a boat.
And it's a newer version of the one that I had when I was, or that he had when I was, 16, 17, 18, that I'd take out all the time. So that thing's capable of a 30, 40 mile offshore trip. And so I do have a goal of, especially before bear season, or at least bear baiting starts, going down pretty frequently and fishing out of that, and making videos with that. I mean, I made that smelting video with my brother and my dad.
Yeah.
And that was just a blast, having all three of us together.
I know, I've really been disappointed with myself about how much footage I've gotten. I did well during hunting season, but I had a camera that I had to upgrade from. But I learned that. I upgraded from that.
Yeah.
But I got that like right at the end of hunting season when it was on sale. Well, it really was, because I bought it Cyber Monday.
Yeah.
So it really was like at the end of the season. I think a couple days passed, technically.
You and I got our cameras like 2 or 3 days apart from each other.
Yeah. And so I'm hoping, I guess a true goal of mine, more so than just simply catching fish, is just having better footage.
Yeah.
I have a camera that took a lot of footage, but in that other camera, it was rattling in the case. So when you listen to it, that's all you hear is that rattle.
I got a piece of foam set aside for you to put inside of
I know. I got to try to do something like that just to see if it'll work that way.
It'll crush right down, and it'll get rid of that squeaking.
Yeah. I know. But the other issue is like a microphone. You can't put a microphone in while that's in there, which kind of sucks. But it's good for just simply straight footage. Like that'd be a good underwater footage camera.
Yep.
Like, excuse me, sorry. I know both cameras can do both underwater, but like if I had ice fishing, let's say, I could do one where it's strictly just for the hole, watching the hole.
Yeah.
And then I could have another one outside of it when the fish are coming out. I could mount that one to, say, the front of the canoe and just get constant footage of me recording while we're moving, and then have my other camera actually focusing on like what I'm doing,
Right. I know you and I had talked about dedicated B-roll cameras.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's that thought process. And then I've been torn. I don't know. I wish that we had enough followers and listeners to really help justify what I want to do.
Yeah.
I appreciate all 9 of you that hang on with us. But like, I wanted to do my food plot this year.
Yeah.
Like truly get more, active with that. Whether or not like I should take a lot of footage of that and upload that to this page, because it's not. You know what I mean? Like rookie season,
right.
Like I don't know if that's like the gray area.
Yeah.
It's not exactly what we've been promoting, but it still relates to hunting.
Right. I mean, I would make the argument that it fits in, because I remember we kind of came to the conclusion when we started this that it's not exclusively a hunting and fishing channel. It's an outdoors channel. And it's us, being new in our pursuits and trying new things in general.
Yeah.
And so I think, because I do a food plot too, we talked about mine a lot this past fall. I think it'd be cool if you and I were both uploading food plot videos side by side, because there's no doubt we have 2 very different properties. We're going to be doing 2 different things and getting 2 different results.
Yeah.
Just having that comparison, I'd say it's justifiable to put it up.
To do that, yeah.
And you know what? I hate to say it, but it's our channel. If people really don't like it, they can just choose the other videos.
That is true, too. That is true. Yeah, because like I would have footage of that. Even my game cam, because I had my game cam set to like recordings.
Yeah.
I had that fox on all the time. I think I sent you the video of the fox marking his territory the other day, and I thought that was funny. Like I thought about making a short out of that.
Yeah.
But there was like, at the same time, I was like, I don't really know what to do with this. I have a lot of footage right now, but nothing to like make a true video out of, I guess.
Right.
And it's also just trying to find a home for it and what would be appropriate.
Right.
Before I forget, you said not to let you forget about the river. You wanted to say something about the river?
Yeah, so this was going to kind of lead into that story that I had for you about the student that I worked with yesterday.
Okay.
He works for a neighboring fire department, and I was complaining about a TV show a little bit, and he was on the ambulance in the back seat. We were just going to get dunks. And I was like, yeah, so there's this TV show called On the Water TV. And I've watched it my whole life. Every Sunday, my dad and I, it didn't matter what was happening, we'd cut out a half an hour to watch that. And usually it was followed up by Ship Shape TV and My Cape Cod Fishing TV. We had the whole morning planned to drink coffee and watch this show. And I was like, and I've had a bone to pick with them because they've outed my favorite striper fishing spots. They made an episode on my family's go-to striper spot, and where they took the boat, and they don't give locations, but they'll give towns or general areas, and then from there you can figure it out. There's enough landmarks that you're like, I know that.
Yeah.
So they caught a huge fish out of there, and now a bunch of people go. We call it the corners. A bunch of people now fish the corners, and it used to be just me, and it's 8 boats I'm competing with now.
Yeah.
That episode came out 10 years ago, and it's still like that. And then 2 years ago, they made an episode fishing with the Old Town pro staff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, I know that marina. That's where I used to work. Hey, that's my boat that they're 20 feet from, showing this 30-inch striped bass that they just caught. Because it was literally... They dumped the kayaks in, paddled 50 yards, and were catching 30 to 35-inch striped bass. And I'm staring at my boat in the background. I'm like, they don't say it, but you can see on the dock house where my old office was when I was doing harbor patrol. You can see this marina, and I'm like, you're kidding me? You're outing my another spot. So then my dad texts me. He goes, hey, get online, because now the episodes are free online.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're on cable up here. And I go online, I start it, and I cast it to my TV. And who are they fishing with? The Old Town Pro staff. So maybe it's not On the Water that I need to pick a bone with. Maybe it's the Old Town Pro staff. And they said, we're in Maine, about 10 miles north of the Old Town Canoe Factory.
Yeah.
So... here.
Basically where we are.
And we've got world-class bass fishing, and it's an entire episode of them bass fishing, and they're showing all of the landmarks and everything. Yeah. I'm like, you guys are doing it to me again.
Yeah. You're chasing me
and
across states. It is. Sorry, go ahead.
This was just the funny part is that rider goes, you watch On the Water that often? I'm like, yeah, of course. And he's like, so you know so-and-so. I blank on the name, but it's one of the, like, I know it when I hear it, but I can't list it off the top of my head. I'm like, yeah, that's the host that's kind of heavier set. He's got a beard, does all the cooking. And he's like, yeah, that's my uncle.
Well, your uncle's a jerk. Yeah. No, I've never seen that show. It's funny, though, that you say that because, like, one, it sucks, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I think like when you and I first started talking about fishing, I was like, I'll tell you some good spots where, like, I know you will go catch trout.
Yeah.
Please don't blast that to all your friends. So I did have a friend that I was like, yeah, man, I'll bring you and somebody else. We'll go show it. And then, like, after that, they were just hammering it with a bunch of people.
Right.
And it was like, it just sucked because they weren't, like, true outdoors people. They were just, there's a difference. There's a difference between some people who are, like, I don't know, just the kids that want to go catch a couple fish, and then people who are like, I respect the land, I respect and I enjoy the process and being out in the woods and that stuff. Like, I'm that guy.
And then there's the salmon snaggers too, you know?
What do you mean?
It's just like a common joke, like people who just want to kill fish.
Yeah.
So it's super illegal to snag salmon.
Oh, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
And so people that just go out and nail 1,000 salmon, snagging them so they can have them.
Yeah, so these guys, they're good people, like, overall, but it's just very different, I think, morals when it comes to fishing, right?
Yeah.
And so it bummed me out. But it's funny that you were saying about, like, seeing this show. So Dan Infalt, the Hunting Beast, like, he owns all that. He talks about it all the time, how, like, people get mad at him because there's two ways about it. One, he's always shooting these monster bucks.
Yep.
And he doesn't give his location, but, like, people can, like, he'll show, like, he'll be recording himself, and some people can either pick up on where he's at, and they'll go and double down on those spots, and then he'll have, like, 10 people that shows up to the spots that he's been hunting.
Yeah.
Or you get the locals who are mad because they're able to figure out where he's at because of his videos, and they're like, you're exposing our spots. And he's like, Well, if I was exposing your spots, you would have shot this 12-point buck already.
Yeah.
But it's hard in the... I get it. I do get it.
Yeah.
Because, like, I would be the same way. I just don't have a personal, like, connection to it. But I would be like, these...
Sons of...
Yeah. You know, it's like, son of a gun.
It's such a double-edged sword, and it's funny because when you look at it from, like, such a face value, your morals seem like they're flip-flopping all around. But, you know, like, if I said I caught this massive fish on Moosehead, Moosehead is already a famous lake, and it's so big, and there's so much there that, like, unless I gave you coordinates or I said specifically, like, this big rock off of this cove, like, nobody's going to know. And realistically, again, it's kind of self-replenish. I'm with you. I get real touchy about these little tiny ponds that are... like 6 acres that if the wrong 10, 15 people find out about it, they're done.
Well, it's also hard when you put the legwork in to find it.
Yeah.
You know, like for the river, right? If that show like was showing the Penobscot or whatever, it was like I've heard from a couple people who were like, you know, the Penobscot's a hidden like bass sanctuary. People just don't realize it. Well, I think the difference is that for the most part, Mainers don't give two craps about bass fishing.
Right.
Because we have all this salmon and trout and togue where it's like, I'm going to go fish for that. Go slay the bass. I don't care. So when you do the legwork to go find these ponds that, like, a couple that I've told you about, where it's like, they're not hidden. You know, like, anybody can find them.
Anybody with a gazetteer and access to the state's list of like, what fish are in what pond.
But there's a lot of people who just don't. They're lazy. They don't do that. You know, they'll just go on Facebook or they'll ask somebody about just some random spot and they'll give them some place like Pushaw or like Mud Pond or some place where it's like no one really gives a crap about those ones. When you gotta drive like an hour and a half out in the woods to go find these places, those ones would sting more for me. Like if there was a show who was like, hey, we're out here on, you know, such and such pond. There's 3 or 4 of them right in a row, so we just jump through them all day. But you know, you're guaranteed almost to catch a trout from each one, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'd be like, you bastards. You know, but the Penobscot, I care less about, but I get it because I also don't, you know, some people crap talk Mainers, and I get it. But I think so some people get upset with Mainers because they're like, you don't want anybody to come up here and hunt and fish or do whatever. You want it for yourself. And it's like, it's not that we don't want to share the woods or the water. We want to make sure the people who are coming respect it and share the same morals and values of the woods and the water. And I think that's a big difference. You get some people, I'll pick on you. Yep. Not that I think you are this way, but you get people from Cape Cod who come up and they're just like, who gives a snot about this area? And they're just a bunch of people that are just like peppering one spot and there's you know, they're exposing it, and it's the respect thing. It's the same thing as the same group of friends that I brought out to this one little pond. I showed them they wanted to catch trout. I brought them out there. And then after, I was like, hey, man, if you guys don't mind, like, don't tell everybody and their brother about this place. Like, if you share this with somebody, only share it with, like, 1 or 2 people. Right. And then it was, like, 3 weeks later, they were telling me about how they brought, like, 9 people up there. And none of them were, like, half of them never even been fishing before. So I'm glad that they got the experience. So I'm not ignorant on that front. But they don't respect it and share the same morals of it. So, like, those guys go and they're like, what'd you do? I went and catch some trout this weekend. What'd you go? And they tell them, that's when you get all the littering. That's when you get all this nasty stuff, you know? And it's like...
You don't invite anybody into your house, but you want to make sure they'll wipe their feet on the mat or take their shoes off.
And that's just it. And I think that's the big discrepancy that some people get when they're like, Mainers don't want to share. It's like, Mainers just want to... We want to make sure that things are valued. Yeah. Like, this isn't a political thing, but the things that annoy me a lot of times when it's, like, out-of-staters... A lot of times out-of-staters move away from whatever area they're at to escape it. Right. Then they come in here and they try to make this place like where they came from. Right. And it's like, that's not what this is, you know?
It's like going up to Millinocket, don't use Burt Bees. You'll get jumped.
Yeah, exactly.
For people that don't know, there's a bunch of... My understanding, and this is going to be a gross kind of like just dumb it down, but there's a bunch of public land... or it was privately owned but publicly accessible, because Maine, the way it works is everything is publicly accessible unless there's a sign that says otherwise. And Burt's Bees came in, bought up like 150,000 acres, and then posted all of it so that way nobody could use it.
The little piece that you're missing was the guy that originally owned Burt's Bees. Yeah. Let it, from my understanding, was allowing it to be public and shareable. Yes. And then a woman bought it from him. and then shut everything down, posted everything, and then now they're logging stuff, they're clearing out land, and that's the problem, is that it went from being like recreational for everybody, but this guy just simply owned it, to no access, and now they're clear cutting a lot of it, and so that's why it stings, because Maine woods, don't get me wrong, it's been logged 3 times over since America's been America, but there's not. I think it's like 83% of the state is still woods. It's something like that. It might even be more than that.
I've heard that like it's the most heavily wooded state in the lower 48, and so like one of the most rural too.
Yeah, and so that's the problem with it. Like people's outlook on it is that just not that it doesn't matter. It's a woman, but a woman did buy it, and she's the one that, from my understanding, locked it down.
Yeah,
and they're clearing it out and just harvesting a bunch of stuff. So it went from being like this protected. Burt's Bees was like a hippie guy in the sense who just was like, I made some hand lotion and chapstick, to a true business that's now milling out the trees. And
right.
I think that's the issue with it. No, I don't know. It is weird. When you just talk with different people about how they value stuff, honestly, it's even like when we talk about Michaela, this is kind of a different topic, but kind of the same.
Yeah.
You feed her something, she's like, this is amazing, what is it? And you're like, it's moose meat. She's like, that poor moose. Like, it's like, I never should have eaten this.
Yeah, and then she doesn't want it.
But she'll go out and eat cow,
right.
Which they've been, I'm not attacking Michaela at all by any means. I've even had this jokingly argument with her, but it's like, you'll eat cows or chicken or all these things that are just like, they're literally being raised for slaughter, in comparison to a true free-range moose or a deer that's just out there chewing its cud and and doesn't know what's going on after that. And it's funny just how the morals, like people's morals kick in different formats. I guess. I don't know.
I'm gonna pivot for a second here. I got two pivots, two just wildly different things.
I don't really have anything to talk about today, so we can talk about whatever you want.
This was neat to me. The age report for last year's moose hunt came back. So the state, every single moose that gets harvested, they pull a tooth and they use that tooth to figure out exactly how old that moose was. So Scotty's moose, that was a big cow. That was 600 something pounds. Was 7.5 years old.
No doubt.
Bailey's moose was a year old.
Yeah, it was a young bull.
Mine, take a guess. It was 485, 87 pounds. Gutted.
It was a cow or a bull?
Cow.
4 years? No? I have no idea.
17.5 years old.
No doubt. Yeah.
And it was one of the oldest taken in the state. There were like 3 or 4 that I saw that were older. But outside of that, everything else was like in that 1 to 5
That thing
range.
was tired. I heard you guys' truck shut, and it was like, today's a day. I'm coming.
It walked towards it.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think if I had shot it when it was 7 years old, I think it would have been right up there with Scotty's moose. But for it being that old, I'm sure it was kind of on its way out the door. So now going back to the morals too, debatably, I did that thing a favor.
Yeah.
If it's on its way down and it gets a hard winter, I'd rather take one to the chest real quick instead of starve for a month.
I'd rather get shot than get eaten by coyotes.
Yeah.
Or killed by ticks. That'd be a slow death either way. I think I saw the largest deer that was taken last year. Dressed out was like 243 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I think it was probably walking around 300 pounds.
That's bigger than the smallest moose my guide said was shot.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, they saw a head, and the client, it was like one of the last days, and the client, he was like, hey man, moose is a moose. If you want to go for it, go for it. Like, we're running out of time. So they tracked the head, and as soon as it stepped into the clearing, boom, took it, walked up to it, and they're like, well, it's a moose. And it dressed out to hundreds.
Dang.
Like 100 to 150 pounds.
Dude, that's a tiny moose.
Now, the funny thing is, that's the moose that the state wants you to take.
Why?
So that was all the adaptive hunt.
Yeah.
So obviously that was with the cow tag.
Right.
And they make you do an hour and a half, only for people who pull the adaptive tag, an hour and a half lesson on the adaptive hunt and why they're doing it. And there's other things on like just some tips for moose hunting. But with it being the ticks, they want you to shoot the calves because the calves will lose up to 70 or 80% of their blood from ticks
Yep.
that are much more likely to die versus an adult cow will lose like 20 to 30% of its blood. So they're like, well, if a moose is going to die because they need the resources anyways, it's the proven winners concept. We'll let the adults keep going.
Keep going. Yeah.
I don't know if I would have taken a baby.
Those morals. I know it's hard. Like I shot that 6-point deer, and I was like, I'll never shoot per se like a smaller deer. Like I always want to progress to a bigger deer, right?
Yeah.
I didn't shoot anything this year. Towards the end of those days, the spike came out.
Yeah.
We might have been having a discussion. You know, I would have been having some like a demon and an angel on my shoulder, being like, "Take it." Be like, "No, let him live." You know.
I'm still brown as down. My most embarrassing harvest was my first deer ever.
Mm-hmm.
I got jumpy. I knew that there were a handful. It was thick. And so the first one that I got a clear shot at, they weren't right on top of each other, so I knew I wasn't shooting two at once. Mm-hmm. But the first one that got into clear, I shot, and I walked up to it. And I was like, oh, geez, that looked a lot bigger with the zoom. And like I said, it was my first deer, so I called my dad. He's at deer camp with all of his buddies. And he's got me on speaker because he's like, my boy got one.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, so now this part of field dressing, you need to reach up underneath the rib cage into the neck and cut the esophagus. I'm like, Dad, I can't do that. And he's like, well, you need to. I'm like, no, Dad, I can't do that. And he said, I don't care. You shot this deer. You need to take care of it.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do. I said, no, it's not that I don't want to. I can't fit both hands inside of this thing at the same time. He's like, how small of a deer did you shoot? And I didn't even
still had spots.
It didn't have spots. I shot the last one off of it. But I didn't even feel terrible about it until my roommate, and again, I made the shot, and I just called my roommates. I'm like, boys, I'm going to need help dragging, because I knew I connected. And it really felt small when my roommate, he was a big guy, but one hand threw the thing into my truck bed. I was like, oh, no. God.
Yeah. It's hard. It's definitely hard. See, to me, for expanded zones, it's brown, it's down. Like, I have a tag both. But out here, I would like to shoot something that is justifiable. Yeah. That being said, though, like with the last day, if it's the only deer I see, that'll be it. But, like, I saw so many doe this year that it was just insulting. You know, they were just everywhere. There were does. I just didn't see many bucks. I know there's a buck. I know where the bedding's at. Like, I know where everything's at for that buck. I just could never get there. He always had me by the wind. So this year I'm planning on how to get around him. Yeah. And then, other than that, so I'm hoping to be able to hunt this season a good amount. I know we'll have a newborn, but by then hopefully we have a better balance going. Better idea how to manage it.
So, last point of the day. Mm-hmm. This was cool. I'm sure you remember last season I bear hunted and I got that private land and everything. Yes. And now I'm actually going to split into two things. First one is after I hunted that private land, even though I didn't get anything, I wrote the guy a thank you letter. Nice. And it kind of explained everything. Like, I got a moose tag and I was trying for a Grand Slam, and even though I didn't get it, like, I wouldn't have even been able to try for it if you didn't give me permission to hunt your land. I'm very thankful. If there's anything I can do, he's an out-of-stater. You know, if you want me to check up on the property or whatnot, please, here's my cell phone number. Thank you so much. Yeah. And he calls me, and he's like, that's incredible. Never gotten a letter like that. Come to my house. He did? And his cabin up here. Yeah. And I want to meet you now.
That's pretty cool.
And so I met him. There was a cabin. The tax maps have it as another property. Yeah. So I was like, well, I got to be 400 yards away from that house with a bear bait. So it took this 60, 70 acre plot of land and gave me two tiny little spots that I could put bear bait. Yeah. And they weren't the best spots. Yeah. And he mentioned, like, yeah, you can put bear bait closer to the place, just don't put it on my porch. Right. But, and then he's like, and hey, we already had our Friendsgiving, but every year the entire neighborhood comes here. So next Thanksgiving, love to have you over and whatnot. That's cool. So and he's like, bring your friends out, please. Put 20 tree stands out there. I don't care. No shit. If someone's hunting it, I'm happy, and especially if it's you or your friends.
That's cool.
So, if you guys ever get permission to hunt private land, write a thank you note.
Yeah, for sure.
Not that was the goal, but
Right. But no, but appreciation goes a long ways. Like,
Yeah.
letting people know, like, thank you for allowing me to access,
Yeah.
what you purchased. You worked hard for what you got. Thank you for allowing me to benefit from it as well.
exactly. And at the very least, it'll help you if you want to go back next year.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's cool, though.
So, even though I've got that spot in my back pocket, and I'm definitely putting a bait barrel out there this year, Maine has public land that the state owns, and they raffle off bear bait sites on that public land every 3 years. So I put in, and I got a couple buddies in on it. I remember asking you, and you just, bear hunting wasn't really your thing. So that's cool.
It just doesn't really, I don't know, not something I really like intrigued to go do.
Right. And so it was funny. I got into it because I was like, I'm never going to shoot a moose. I'm never going to get pulled for a moose tag. So this is the next biggest thing I can shoot. And then I got the moose tag.
Yeah.
First year bear hunting. But
hey, at least you got a moose.
yeah, didn't get a deer, didn't get a bear, got a moose.
Hey, better than nothing.
And so I had them put in. I was like, okay, the deal is, because they all live at least an hour south, really like an hour and a half, hour 45 south. I said, you guys pay for your bait. Pay for all of my bait. I will run all of your baits.
Yeah.
And you guys can stay at my house as often as you want, all bear season. I don't care. Mm-hmm. And that's the deal. You can, because my house is only 15 minutes from these spots.
Right.
If we win. And so they agreed to that. And I gave them the list, because they were 15 bait sites, all kind of off of the same road in the same town. So I was like, put in for these. And we all put in for one bait site. And they had more bait sites than people put in for.
Oh.
So I won 2 bait sites.
Nice.
My friends won none.
Of course, yeah.
So I was able to claim them. Now, luckily, it'll work out. It was 2 other guys. One of them, I did this a little strategically just in case. I still didn't put in for 2 sites. I don't know how I won 2 sites, but I'm not going to say no, because I have these 2 sites for the next 3 years now.
Yeah.
One of them I put as my secondary hunter.
Yeah.
Because only people listed on that tag can hunt it. So me and that one other buddy, I'm going to give him, I'm just going to say site B is yours.
Yeah.
And then because I've got that permission from the guy, I'm still going to run the bait out on the private land. And either I'll take that site, or actually, my buddy would have to take that site. But still,
I know what you mean.
The 3 of us will be able to still
Hunt. Yeah.
bear hunt.
Yeah.
And even though we're not all going to be in the same cut, so one of them will be 100 yards from me.
Yeah.
And the other one's going to be 10 miles from me. But at least, we're all going the same day and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like when you go hunting, like if you and I went hunting together, like deer hunting.
Yeah.
And I dropped you off somewhere and I went 3 miles down the road. But we're still hunting together, because if you shoot a deer, you call me and I'll come help you get it, vice versa.
It was like what we did bow hunting.
Yeah, exactly. And I really want to I want to do a lot of things, right? Because I don't know how my year is going to go. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to do better at hunting the expanded. I only hunted the expanded one time.
That's it.
That was it. Yeah.
Wow.
Because I hunted that beginning of September. I don't remember what we did, but I did a bunch of stuff during September. I don't know, maybe it was finishing the barn, or I did a bunch of stuff.
That was it.
Okay.
It was the barn. Because I texted you a couple times and you said you were doing that.
Yeah.
Or you just didn't want to hang out with me and that was your scapegoat.
Both. No, I'm pretty sure it was probably the barn, because last year we struggled not having the second barn.
Yeah.
And this year has been tenfold better having that barn. So most likely it was that. But I'd like to, because going back to the whole brown is down, I have no problem going and picking up doe.
Yeah.
I have so many doe behind my house. I wish I could get a doe tag for it. I will put in for one.
Yeah.
Just because, dude, I tell you, I saw no less than 15 doe behind my house.
Right.
And so that'd be not easy, because in theory I could have only shot a couple of them, but it would up the odds. But expanded, I could buy a tag, go get doe, hopefully, because I need more deer meat. I'm running out of deer meat, and I don't want to run out of game meat.
Right.
I like having the meat. I've been saving a lot of money, because we either have steaks or hamburger or whatever. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can just make some kind of connection out back here. Hopefully I can do the food plot, and that'll change everything. Hopefully for a lot of things, honestly.
I know this year I'm going to be much more apt to shoot a doe off of my property. Maine's funny because we've got the doe tag, so if you get that, you can shoot a buck and a doe. But if you don't win a doe tag, only during the archery-only season, you can shoot a doe, but that's your buck tag. You cannot pursue a buck or another deer during rifle season. So I was kind of iffy on that, and I ended up last year, I was like, I would shoot a doe just so I can try to get my Grand Slam. But now I'm like, I'm definitely going to shoot a doe with my bow because I've got plenty. And I can still go to expanded, and because those tags are different, out of the expanded zones, I can still shoot a buck.
Yeah, exactly.
And 3 does.
Yeah. So. No, because there's a one spot, you and I walked at one time, had a bunch of oaks on it. Yeah. It was down towards, you know what I'm talking about? Yep. Okay. Where every time I went and hunted there, like, I hunted there probably 12 times, and literally 9 out of 12 of those times, a doe every morning at like 7 to 7:15 in the morning walked along the stream that I was set up on. Yeah. And it was like, it was stupid. Like, one day I was like, you know what? Screw it, I'm just shooting this thing. And I remember it was walking towards me. I walked behind a tree and I drew back. And because I was in a saddle, and it was kind of a quarter into my like left behind me. Yeah. And I'm right hand dominant, so I had to do literally almost a 180 in the tree stand. And I remember as I was turning, I pulled it back and I was looking down at her. And as I was leaning down and I was like 3/4 away draw, she looked up at me and kind of startled. So I'm trying to hold this arrow, this bow, 3/4 away back, right at that pendulum where it's the hardest to be holding it at.
Right before that break over.
Yeah, and I was like, oh God, please, please move, please look away. And I remember she was just staring at me, and I was staring at her, and then finally she was like, huh. And then she turned back and kept walking, and so then I went to fully finish my draw, and she bounded 3 times away. Yeah. And it kept looking at me, and so I was able to relax it while she was bounding away because there was. I'm not talented enough to quick draw shoot a deer with my bow. Right. And she went up the ridge that we were on. So she was probably as a crow flies, 50 feet away. Yeah. But she was probably 30 feet higher than me. And then she was walking along the tree line and just kept looking back over at me. Every now and then she would stop and just do that one stomp. Yeah. And then she kept moving on. But I just remember being I know this is going to count as my buck, but this deer is here every morning. Yeah. I should shoot this deer. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I didn't get a deer last year. And I was oh, it's October, whatever it was. I was I still have a whole nother month. Maine's just one of those states, depending on where you're at, I guess, and what kind of setup you have, is you don't pass the opportunities that you can get. Yeah. Because you probably won't get another one. Right. You know, I did see a lot of doe beyond that, but that doe specifically was the one out of all of them that I could have shot 3 or 4 different times, and I just never did because I was I want to get a buck.
Right. In a weird way, I think you and I are kind of in the same boat in that this was one of my most successful years ever hunting in terms of seeing deer. Yeah. I saw a lot of deer. Yeah. Now, padding the numbers was the fact that a couple times I went out and I'd see 4 to 7 in a herd at a time. And even I know I missed twice, but even ones I didn't shoot at, it was kind of frustrating me. If I had a rifle, you're down. Yeah. I have my pick of the litter.
I think it's the beauty of the bow is I just being in the woods and the challenge of it. Yeah. And the beauty of the bow is simply that. If I had a shotgun, I jumped 2 deer that were no less than 15, 20 feet from me. Mm-hmm. Where when they jumped up because they were scared of me, it scared me because they startled me from how they jumped up. Yeah. But I just remember with my bow, I was bang, bang, in my head, I could have shot that. If I had a shotgun, within the way the woods was and where I was set up, I was I could have smoked you 3 times over. Yep. And I do hunt a lot with a shotgun because I hunt very dense areas. Right. Where I'm going to cross a deer where it's you're just kind of spraying and praying through the brush, in a sense. That's why I like buckshot, and that's why I like slugs. You know? That's where I think if I can do the food plot, I'm sure I've said it 10 times over on this podcast, and I'll say it 10 times over again, but if I can do the food plot to draw them up from where I was seeing them consistently.
Yeah.
And even if I don't hunt the food plot itself, but I went down and I hooked it, and I hunted between where they're coming from and bedding to the food plot.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they're going to make it to the food plot more towards like nighttime or in the morning or whatever. You know, right at that daylight or day end or daylight, however you word that time frame, and get in between there. I think it'll up my odds.
Yeah.
Instead of me trying to go down into their home and tiptoe down in there. I also know one of the biggest things I need to do is I have those what are the names of them? I think it's
weird things that you have to climb.
Yeah, I think they're called wild edge steps or whatever.
Like that.
They're a triangle where they work. Don't get me wrong. And if I have a tree out here that I find, I might throw them up there and just
leave them.
Yeah, give them the blessing and leave them in that one spot. But I know for a fact that I'm buying some actual sticks this year. I think a lot of times that would have made a world of a difference, just in the sense of just the noise, the amount of movement I had to do when I was trying to climb a tree. Instead of just wrapping it around, hooking it on that little loop in the front and tightening it, like I'm trying to wrap it around, do a knot. You know, you got to fold a step down,
right.
And if it's not right, you got to loosen up your knot, or you got to tighten your knot, and you got to fold it down again. And if that doesn't work, and it's like there were several times where I was in like the perfect spot.
I gotta tell you, man,
I was fighting those
$80 made in China Amazon
Hawk Helium sticks or whatever, or are they just
no, they're unbranded.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's one of those. The title of the item is 1,000,000 miles long, and it's like great for the outdoors.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But those work surprisingly well. They grip the tree so well that I'd take the strap off, the cam strap. And that was one of the reasons I got them, was that they were cam straps instead of those daisy chains.
Yeah.
And they stayed on the tree. I'd have to muckle onto them and pull them out of the bark.
Yeah. Something that I want to do, and I wanted to do it last year. This is my problem. I want to do too many things. Where it's like,
it's the attention deficit in you.
Yeah, you know, it's like I'm gonna do this. No, I don't. Is like there's a couple trees that I climbed last year where I know that I can go back and climb them now, because when I got there, I was kind of like, well, screw it, and I busted tree limbs as I was going up.
Yeah.
You know, because then the next time I go, I don't have to bust the tree limbs.
Right.
And I have several of those places. So now this year, at least, I can walk down and climb that tree and not worry about it. There's one spot for a fact that I know I got to figure something out on, because that's where I kept jumping a single deer.
Yeah.
All around where this deer was running from was a ton of rubs and scrapes. There was a few trails in and out, and it's on a little island within the marsh.
Yep.
So to me, that just screams buck all day. There's only 3 beds on it, and they're at the points. One's in the center on the highest part, where you can actually see out across, and there's one on each end of this little island, like, I don't know, cylinder shape in a sense, I guess. You know. So to me, it's like I need to set up better on that.
Right.
And so I want to find a spot for bow, and then if not, now that I have a new scope on my gun, and hopefully I don't repeat what happened last year, is I can go down this road that runs along my house, essentially.
Yep.
And I can drop down into the marsh where the stream runs through. And from the other side of the marsh, if I was shooting across it, it's 120 yards.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
No. So as long as, like I said, jokingly, for those of you who don't know, I had a scope malfunction that made me lose a patch buck. That was a 9-point patch buck. I don't want to talk about it because I cry when I do. But I could work my way down in there, and I could just scope it with binoculars and just wait for that guy to poke his head out and hopefully just connect.
Right.
I'll obviously start off with a bow, hopefully shoot him with the bow. That would be the bee's knees. And then if not, move over. I do know that I think I want to shoot a different style broadhead.
Okay.
Because the broadhead I have, I couldn't tell you the exact name of it, but it was heavy enough that within a 25-yard shot, it was dropping like 3 or 4 inches.
Yep.
So it was literally like arcing, which I'm sure a lot of them do, but either I need to get more familiar with it or maybe a different style. Because they do sell some that like you can shoot. The other thing, let's backtrack right here, is either a different style of broadhead, or I need to buy the target arrows that have a weighted head that mimics a broadhead. So that way when I'm shooting, I'm not shooting something that's super light all the time.
Right.
I can actually shoot something that's going to account for the drop. So when I'm target practicing, I am now target practicing with a weighted item.
Yeah.
So when I do go shoot that broadhead, there's no change.
I shoot mega meats.
Okay.
I had hybrid muzzies, and they shot pretty well dead on. And I only ended up, because I missed twice and plowed them into a tree. I didn't want to try to sharpen them myself.
Yeah.
And I can only find them on Amazon. And there's by the time I was down to my last one, there was all of a week left in the season, and Prime's not a thing up here.
Yeah.
So I went to Mega Meats because they're at Walmart. They're like $45. Mm-hmm. They come with a target or with a practice head.
Yeah.
And those were shooting field point accuracy for
Yeah.
me, or at least the practice broadhead was, where they're fully mechanical. I'm going to take Mega Meat's word for it that the broadhead's going to fly how the practice one does.
Right.
But that was...
Yeah, see, mine's a fixed blade. It's like it's 3 triangular shaped razor blades. So like when it hits, it's like 1.5 inches wide.
Yep.
All the way around. So when it hits, it's punching through. I wonder if the mechanical makes a difference in the sense of just like flight of the drop or not. I never really used many mechanical ones.
You probably have Montex. That's like the go-to most people with fixed blades. I bought a pack of them, and my bow shot terrible with them.
Really?
I put them on, and I was shooting like 8 inches to the right.
Oh, really? So like I shot that at that target I have out here,
Yeah.
and when I was shooting at the vitals, because I have a fake deer, and in between the legs of the deer I put my square like target, so that way if I shot and it dropped too much I wouldn't like just impale it into the ground.
Right.
And every time I shot directly at the vital V, I would touch just the top of that box.
Oh.
So it was like 4 to 6 inches, let's say, and if I shot at the shoulder blade or like the top part of the back, it would hit the vital V. And I wasn't in love with that because it was like, I know I got to adjust for it, but...
Well, it sounds like your broadheads are heavier than your field points.
That's what I'm saying. Is like
Okay.
I need to get a field point or the targeting arrow. That's what I was just calling it, the targeting arrow.
Yeah.
That they weigh the same.
Gotcha.
So when I'm shooting them, I can just learn to make that adjustment ahead of time. And instead of just doing target practice with those light arrows, like the pencil-tipped ones, essentially, where it's like everything flies nice and straight, and I put on the broadhead and I shoot at this deer, and I'm 6 inches low. I don't want to do that.
I think with your bow, you're going to be stuck with lighter arrows in general.
Yeah.
But I've got 100 grain field tips or practice tips.
Yeah.
And then I only buy 100 grain broadheads.
Yeah.
So I guess only if you know how many grains your broadheads are. It sounds like you maybe got 125s or 150s.
Yeah, they're heavy. What I need to do is stop half-assing everything that I do in a sense and sit down and like really study within the bow itself, like what arrows do I want. Like I do a 400 spine arrow, which I'm fine with, but everything else beyond that is kind of like just taking what I can get. You know, I wish I could remember the name of those arrows, those broadheads specifically. I don't know. If I went out and grabbed it, I would know, but I'm not doing that right now. Yeah. But that's kind of all I got for this week. I don't know if you got anything else you want to talk on or touch on.
That's all I got. That brings us to a little over an hour, so I think we're good to cut it off here.
Fair enough. Well, if that's the case, as always, we appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening in. Hope you got something from it, or at least enjoyed listening to it.
Make sure to check out our YouTube channel and see some of the videos that we're talking about and referencing in this podcast. While you're over there, check out our channel sponsor, Alp Nicotine Pouches.
That's it.
In the description, you'll find a link and a discount code for 10% off your first purchase if you're 21 or over.
That's just it. Enjoy it.